same every full moon. No one can save us.
Time to dance the dance.
Chapter 1. The Night of Locking Doors. The year was 1983. A town no one cared to name stretched across the desert edge of New Mexico. A scattering of houses, a gas station, one diner, and a sheriff's office that hadn't seen law in years. Folks said this place was dying, others said it was already dead, and only the shadows hadn't noticed yet. Every full moon, the town shut down. Boards nailed across windows, crosses drawn on doors, not from faith, but from desperation. A few shops even had crude signs slapped on their glass. Full moon, closed until dawn, the kind of signs that made outsiders laugh, until they stayed the night. Children didn't laugh. They didn't play outside when the moon rose. They stayed huddled in the corners of their homes, ears covered, waiting for the sounds they knew were coming. Because everyone in that town knew the same truth. Something walked among them on nights like this, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. That night, the moon rose pale and swollen, climbing into the black desert sky. Its light poured over the rusted cars and forgotten fences, turning every shadow into something alive. The wind carried with it the smell of sand and sagebrush, and something else, something coppery. The first howl rose in the distance, long, low, bone-shaking. Inside the diner, every head dropped. Cutlery was set down quietly, no one daring to speak. The neon sign flickered, the hum of the buzzing light only making the silence worse. Doors slammed, bolts turned. In one house, a man drove nails into his window frame, with trembling hands whispering prayers through his teeth. In another, a woman pulled her daughter under the bed, clutching her close while tears ran silently down her cheeks. The sheriff sat in his office, bottle in hand, gun on the desk. He wasn't going out there. Not tonight. He never did. Nobody did. The rule was simple. Stay inside. Survive the night. And then it came. At the far end of town, a shadow slid across the street. Not a man. Not a wolf. Something stretched between the two. Towering shoulders. Hunched and heaving. Long arms that ended in claws. It moved with a patience that was worse than rage. Each step deliberate. Slow, almost savouring the silence it left in its wake. Windows rattled as the thing passed. Curtains twitched. A dog barked once, then whimpered into silence. Another howl ripped the night apart. Louder. Closer. The town braced itself, because it wasn't a question of if. It wasn't a question of where. It was only a question of who, and tonight, someone was going to die. Chapter 2. Behind the door. The house was small, wooden walls too thin for a night like this. Inside, Daniel and his wife Marjorie had done what everyone did when the moon rose, bolted the doors, nailed the shutters, and prayed the creature would pass them by. They crouched together in the cramped hall closet, pressed shoulder to shoulder in the dark. The air was hot and stale. Every creak of the house felt like it would give them away. Daniel's whisper was ragged. Last time it took Henry from down the street. Maybe tonight it'll move on. Maybe it won't come here. Marjorie clutched his hand, nails biting his skin. This is madness, she hissed. We can't just sit here like cattle. Somebody needs to do something. We can't keep waiting for it to choose who dies next. Daniel squeezed her hand tighter. Shh, don't talk like that. It'll hear you. The first sound came like nails dragged across slate. A long, slow scratch at the front door. Marjorie froze. Daniel's eyes widened in the dark. "Is that our door?" she whispered. The scratching grew louder, wood splintering. A low growl rolled through the walls, and then thud. The whole doorframe shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. "God's sake," Daniel breathed. "Keep quiet. Keep quiet." Another smash. The sound of hinges tearing, wood snapping like bones, and then silence. They held their breath. The footsteps began. Heavy. Deliberate. 2 feet, not 4. Each step shook the floorboards as if the thing enjoyed dragging its weight across the room. And then the breathing. Low. Wet. Like a furnace exhaling. The sound of hunger. Something crashed in the kitchen. The creature was inside. Marjorie pressed her face against Daniel's shoulder to keep from screaming. The tears soaked his shirt. The footsteps grew closer. They stopped, just outside the hall. The closet door rattled in its frame. A shadow fell across the thin crack of light at the bottom. Then, smash! A back door burst open. The steps thundered away. A howl split the night as the thing left the house, fading into the desert beyond. Silence. Marjorie sobbed with relief. Daniel leaned his head back against the wall, gasping. "We're safe," he whispered. "We're safe. For now. Maybe until tomorrow." She gripped his arm. "Don't open it. Don't you dare open it." "It's gone," he said, his voice trembling but determined. "It's safe. It's gone. Daniel, please?" But he was already pushing the door open. The hinges groaned, spilling a thin line of moonlight into the closet. He turned, face pale but resolute, ready to reassure her. And the shadow filled the doorway, massive, hulking, the shape of the beast, its breath hot and fetid in the dark. Daniel's eyes widened, his mouth opened. And then there was only the sound of ripping wood, Marjorie's scream, and blackness. Chapter 3. Whispers of the Hunter. Morning came with silence. No birds sang, no dogs barked. The sun felt wrong over the little town, its light showing too much of the night's truth. Daniel and Marjorie's house stood gutted, the door torn from its hinges, windows shattered, blood staining the floorboards. Their bodies, what was left of them, had been carried out and wrapped in sheets. Townsfolk gathered, faces pale, eyes down, sweeping glass, hammering planks across the ruined frame. Not one of them spoke above a whisper. Across the street, Sheriff Dalton leaned against a post, hands buried deep in his pockets. A bottle cap rattled in his coat. His eyes were red, not from tears, but from whiskey. A man broke from the crowd and marched across the street. His voice was sharp, shaking with fury. "Sheriff, you can't just stand there. Every month someone dies. You're supposed to protect us. You're supposed to do something." The sheriff didn't move. His gaze drifted across the broken house, the blood, the shrouded bodies. Then he turned his back, walked across the street, and disappeared into his office. The door closed behind him. A moment later, the sound of a cork popping echoed faintly through the air. The man clenched his fists. "We're nothing but ducks in a barrel, waiting for the beast to choose who's next." From the work crew, an older voice muttered, "No one can stop it. They've tried. Sent men before, a whole team all torn apart. The government left us to rot, said it was contained." The townsfolk muttered agreement. Heads shook. Some cursed under their breath. Then another voice, rasping with age, cut through the gloom. Old Henry Crow, the town's half-forgotten relic, leaning on his cane at the edge of the crowd. "There was a man," he said. "A hunter. Jonas Creed. That was his name. I seen the article once, long ago. Said he tracked an entire pack of Lycans into the Black Hills. and walked out alone. A nervous laugh rippled through the group. Someone spat into the dirt. Stories, bar talk. Nobody hunts a pack. Not even soldiers could kill one, and they had rifles, choppers, everything. Creed's just a myth. Henry's eyes narrowed, voice dropping low. No myth. Flesh and blood. Folks don't like him much. Says things that cut deeper than knives. Never smiles, never thanks. But if anyone can end this, it's him. A younger man frowned. Even if he was real, how the hell would we find him? Henry tapped his cane against the dirt. He don't carry a phone, don't take letters. If you want Creed, you put a notice in the back pages of the Sentinel. Local news, small print, just the words. The moon takes us, the hollow cries. That's his sign. If he's alive, he'll come. But what about payment? Another asked. We can't afford a man like that. We can't afford anything. Henry shook his head slowly. A grim smile crept across his lips. Creed never asks for money. His payment is the hunt. He lives for it. Folks say there's something wrong with him, that he doesn't just kill monsters. He enjoys it. The townsfolk looked at one another, unease settling heavier than the morning sun. No one wanted Jonas Creed in their town, but no one else was... Chapter 4. The Black Charger. 3 weeks had passed since the notice was printed. 3 weeks, and nothing. The townsfolk gathered in the diner, whispers thick as cigarette smoke, faces pale, eyes red from sleepless nights. We put it in the paper, one man muttered. Nothing's happened. He's not coming. He's not real, another said. It was just a story. We were fools to believe it. It's only a week until the moon's full again, a woman whispered. 1 week, and it'll kill again. What do? Should we leave? We can't all leave. The room filled with restless silence. Some stared at the floor, some at the window, all of them waiting for something. Anything. And then they heard it, a deep, throaty rumble, a sound like thunder caged in steel. It rolled through the street, making glasses tremble on the tabletops. Every head turned. Outside, a 1970 Dodge Charger, painted black, crawled down Main Street like a predator on wheels. Its engine growled low, steady and merciless. People stepped back as it passed, eyes wide, breath caught in their throats. The car stopped outside the sheriff's office. The door swung open, and Jonas Creed stepped out. He was younger than most expected, mid-30s, jet black hair slicked back, a face cut from stone, jaw hard as iron, a small cigar clenched between his teeth. His eyes, dark and unflinching, scanned the street like he was already measuring coffins. The sheriff stumbled out of the office, bottle still in hand. His shirt was stained, his badge hanging loose on his chest. He squinted at the stranger. What the hell? Jonas walked straight up to him, and without a word, crack, backhanded him across the jaw. The sheriff hit the dirt, blood spattering from his lip. The crowd gasped. Jonas tossed the newspaper into the air, caught it again, and held it up. Who put this ad out? He barked. His voice was gravel-wrapped in steel. Who sent me this message? For a moment, no one moved. Then Henry Crow stepped forward, cane tapping against the dirt. I did, the old man said. We need your help. Jonas's eyes narrowed. He dropped the paper into the dust. I don't take payment, he growled. What I take is precedence. From this moment, while I'm here, I run this place. You don't like it? Leave. Don't want to leave? Then I will. Your choice. The crowd bristled. Murmurs of anger hissed through the air, but no one moved, because they knew the truth. He was the only chance they had. A younger man stepped forward, voice shaking. Is it true? Is it true you took out a whole pack of Lycans? Alone? Jonas turned his head slowly. He said nothing, just looked. The kind of look that made a man wish he'd never opened his mouth. The silence was answer enough. Finally, Jonas spat his cigar into the dirt and ground it beneath his boot. "You've got 1 week," he said. "Here's what we're going to do." He looked around at them, eyes sharp, unyielding. "I want every scrap of information you've got. Where it's been seen, where it kills, how many are dead. Every sound, every scream, every footprint. No detail too small." A woman spoke up, her voice trembling. We never see it. Only hear it. It comes in the dark. We hear the howl, and then someone's gone. The only thing anyone knows is it walks on 2 legs. Strong, fast, too fast. Almost like it moves within shadows." Jonas's lips curled, the first hint of a smile, and it wasn't a kind one. "Ah," he muttered. "One of those. Haven't seen one in a long time." His eyes glittered, and for the first time, the townsfolk saw not just a hunter, but something just as dangerous as the thing he'd come to kill. Jonas Creed cracked his knuckles, looked at the crowd and said, "I'm going to enjoy this." Chapter 5. The Lazy Hunter. Jonas Creed slept through the day. He had claimed the largest house in town, a 2-story with a white porch and iron fence. The family who owned it, the Turners, had been told to leave. Jonas didn't ask. He didn't care. He stood in the doorway with a cigar between his teeth, tossed their suitcases out onto the dirt and said, "This is mine now. Don't like it? I'll leave town. Your choice." They didn't argue. They left for the motel on the edge of the highway, muttering curses under their breath. Now Jonas lay in the upstairs bedroom, boots crossed, covers pulled high. The Dodge Charger sat gleaming black in the sun outside, like a tombstone planted in the middle of Main Street. The townsfolk watched. They whispered, "He hasn't done a thing. All day in bed. Lazy bastard. Supposed to be a hunter. Looks more like a bum." Their faith began to fray. Fear and anger mixed in equal measure. By afternoon, 2 men had decided that they'd had enough. Big Frank and Tommy, self-styled tough guys of the town. They swaggered through the streets, spitting on the dust, telling anyone who'd listen that Jonas Creed was a fraud. "He'll run before the moon's full," Frank said. "Mark my words, he's no better than the sheriff. Just a bum living off our fear." That night, they crept into the big house. The bedroom was dark, the air thick with cigar smoke and dust. On the bed lay a shape under the covers, the outline of a man, snoring faintly. Frank grinned and raised his bat. "Time to show this clown what happens when you steal from us." The 2 of them laid into the bed. Blows rained down. Kicks, punches, wood splintering as they beat the shape beneath the sheets. "See?" Tommy shouted. "You're nothing. You're nobody. You're just a story." And then the voice came, low, calm, deadly, from the corner of the room. "You boys finished?" The flame of a match sparked in the shadows. Jonas lit his cigar, the glow illuminating his sharp features, his cold eyes. Smoke curled around him as he leaned against the wall, watching. "Because I'm about to start." The 2 men froze, looked down at the bed, at the pile of pillows they'd been smashing. And then, crash. Bodies flew through the upstairs window, glass exploding across the street. Frank and Tommy landed hard in the dirt, groaning in pain, their pride more broken than their bones. Jonas stepped out onto the porch, smoke trailing from his mouth, eyes burning with quiet fury. A crowd had gathered, drawn by the commotion. "You either want my help," Jonas growled, voice carrying across the street, "or you're done. You follow my rules, or I leave. I don't mind either way. The only thing you deprive me of is the kill." He took a drag on the cigar, exhaled. "And that might piss me off." The crowd fell silent. No one moved. No one argued. The next day, Jonas walked with old Henry Crow, the only man in town who dared stand at his side. They spoke in low voices by the edge of the diner, townsfolk watching from a safe distance. Henry told him the old stories, that the creature had walked this land long before the town was built, that it wasn't just a beast, but something darker, a shadow wolf, one that stalked not with rage, but with patience, that every time it struck, it seemed to choose, as if it already knew who would die. Jonas listened. His face remained stone, but his eyes gleamed, not with fear, but with something far more unnerving. Excitement. "Good," he muttered. "I was starting to think this would be easy." Henry swallowed hard. "You don't understand. Men have died trying. Whole squads. They say it can't be trapped." Jonas smiled, a hard, cold smile. "Everything can be trapped, if you know its habits. And you just told me one. It always comes from the north." He flicked his cigar into the dirt and ground it out under his heel. Time to build it a welcome mat. By sundown, Jonas had the whole town working. He commanded without asking, ordering men to drag timbers, women to weave barbed wire, children to fetch nails and rope. They cursed him under their breath, hated the way he spoke to them, but they obeyed. Because when Jonas Creed gave an order, you didn't say no. He designed the trap with a hunter's precision. Sharpened stakes buried in the earth, hidden pits, silver wire stretched across alleyways. The northern road into town became a snare, invisible by moonlight, lethal to anything that walked it. And when it was done, Jonas stood in the street, arms crossed, watching the sun bleed out of the sky. He lit another cigar, smoke curling against the coming dark. "Now," he said, almost to himself, "let's see how clever this bastard really is." The dance begins. The sun died slow that evening, a smear of orange across the desert sky, bleeding into purple, then black. Shadows stretched long over the town, and every man, woman and child felt the weight of the night pressing down. Jonas Creed stepped out of the big house, boots heavy on the porch, cigar clenched in his teeth. He flicked it into the dust, climbed into his black Dodge Charger, and turned the key. The engine roared like a beast itself, deep, hungry, unrelenting. Dust rose in spirals as Jonas revved it once, twice, then slammed the pedal down. The Charger screamed down Main Street, tires spitting gravel, the sound fading into the desert night. The townsfolk stared, mouths open. "Where's he going? He's supposed to be here, protecting us. He's running away. He's left us." Fear turned to fury, voices cracking in the dark. "Coward!" one shouted. Another muttered, Maybe he trusts the trap. Maybe it'll work." But no one believed it. Night fell. Doors slammed, bolts turned, shutters nailed shut once more. The ritual of terror the town knew too well. Inside, families huddled in corners, whispering prayers no one thought would be answered. But a few braver souls lingered outside, watching the North Road, waiting, hoping. The first sound came like thunder in the distance. The howl, long, piercing. It froze blood, rattled teeth, made the stars themselves seem to shiver. Eyes widened as the watchers saw it. A silhouette moving against the moonlight. Massive, towering, upright on two legs. Fast, too fast. A blur of shadow, tearing across the desert, heading straight for town. "It's coming," someone whispered. "Straight into the trap," another said. "It'll work. It has to work." The shape hurtled forward, then hit the snare. The night exploded. Silver wire whipped tight, wrapping around limbs, cutting deep into flesh. Hidden stakes pierced, burning against its hide. The beast shrieked, a sound so loud it shattered glass. It writhed, clawing at the silver, smoke rising from where it touched. The watchers grinned, laughter bubbling through their fear. "We've got it! We've got the bastard!" But the laughter died quick. The werewolf snarled. The fury grew. Its strength doubled, trebled. Muscles bulged as it ripped the wires from its body, snapping stakes like twigs. The trap groaned, twisted, then shattered. The thing tore free and stood tall in the middle of Main Street. Moonlight framed it, a monstrous outline, too hideous to see clearly, but too real to deny. Its howl shook the ground, and every soul in town felt death in their bones. A man dropped to his knees. "It's over. We're done." And then the sound. A roar, louder than thunder, tearing through the night. Headlights blazed across the street, a storm of dust rising behind them. The black Dodge Charger. It screamed down the road, engine howling, silver-plated bumper gleaming in the moonlight. The beast turned too late. Crash! The car smashed into its back, throwing it across the street like a rag doll. The werewolf howled in agony, smoke burning from its flesh where the silver struck. The Charger skidded sideways, tires screeching, coming to rest in the middle of town. The driver's door swung open. Jonas Creed stepped out. Boots hit the dirt, steady as stone. He lit a fresh cigar, the glow catching his sharp features. He looked at the beast writhing in the street, smiled. "That's you and me," he said, voice low and brutal. "Dance the dance." He flicked the cigar to the ground. Sparks hissed in the dust. The werewolf rose, eyes burning red in the moonlight, and the night went silent. The street went silent. Jonas Creed stood in the dust, cigar smoke curling from his lips. The werewolf crouched low, its silhouette monstrous, claws dripping, eyes burning red in the glow of the moon. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then it came. The beast lunged, faster than thought, faster than a man should be able to follow. But Jonas had seen it before. He slid sideways, the claw barely grazing his coat. Boots scuffed in the dirt as he spun, shotgun already in his hands. Boom! The silver pellets slammed into the creature's chest. Smoke hissed where they struck. The beast staggered, then straightened. No scream, no collapse, just rage. Jonas spat in the dirt. "Figures!" The werewolf came again. A whirlwind of claws and teeth. Jonas moved like water, ducking, rolling, sidestepping. Every strike close enough to kill, every miss by an inch. A dance he had done 100 times, each step carved into his bones. He fired again, reloaded in a heartbeat, fired once more. Each blast staggered the monster, but it kept coming. Then Jonas dropped the shotgun and drew his second weapon, a silver-shod pole, long and brutal, wrapped in wolfbane. He swung it with precision, every strike landing true. Crack, across the ribs, wham, into the knee. The werewolf snarled and winced, but the blows barely slowed it. Jonas moved without fear, without hesitation. This wasn't power, this wasn't magic, this was training, a lifetime of hunts, scars earned in silence. His mind was iron, his body was a weapon. Still, the beast pressed harder. Its strength was unnatural, relentless. One mistake, and Jonas would be nothing but blood in the dust. The townsfolk watched from their windows, eyes wide, breath held. They had never seen a man stand against the nightmare like this. Not for seconds, not for minutes. But Jonas did, until at last, the claw hit home. The beast's arm whipped out. Too fast, too sudden. Claws raked across Jonas's forearm, tearing through flesh. Blood spattered across the street. Jonas stumbled back, teeth clenched. He looked at the wound, spat into the dirt and growled, "Damn thing." The werewolf snarled once more, and then it turned, as if bored or cautious or simply waiting for another night. It bounded away into the dark, swallowed by the moonlit desert. Silence hung heavy. Then the doors burst open. The townsfolk poured into the street, cheering, shouting, clapping. Relief and joy like wildfire. They raised their voices in victory. "We're saved!" "He did it! Jonas Creed killed the beast!" Jonas stood bleeding in the street, his face carved from stone. He raised his voice, cutting through the noise. "Shut up!" The crowd froze. He looked out at them, eyes cold. That wasn't a win. That was one. And where you see one... He glanced at the dark horizon. You can bet your soul there's a pack." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "Oh, a pack." Jonas nodded slowly, wiping blood from his arm. A grim smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Not fear, but excitement. "These are a special breed. I've seen them before. Too tough even for me." He tossed his broken cigar aside, lit another with steady hands. "I'm going to need help." Morning came uneasy. The townsfolk, drunk on the illusion of victory, bustled about, patching broken fences and sweeping blood from the street. But in the largest house, Jonas Creed sat alone at a table littered with knives, herbs, and old leather-bound scraps. Henry Crow shuffled in, arms full of odds and ends Jonas had demanded that morning. Chalk, salt, candles, a flask of whiskey, even a rusted mirror. "Don't know what you're planning," Henry muttered, "but this is all I could find." Jonas grunted. "It'll do." He cleared the floorboards, scattering salt in harsh lines, stabbing candles into melted pools of wax. From his pack, he pulled a small glass vial, cracked it against the wood. A black powder spilled, hissed, then bloomed upward in a plume of smoke. Thick, suffocating, filling the room until Henry staggered back, coughing.
By the ancient rites, I call upon the shadows.
Jonas stood in the middle, unflinching. He stared into the shifting darkness and growled, voice sharp as a blade. "Eldridge, you old bastard. I know you hear me. I admit it. I need your help." For a moment, nothing. Just the thick, coiling dark. Then the air bent. Shadows stretched, tore, and a figure stepped through. Tall, gaunt, draped in black, eyes burning like dim embers. Eldridge. He moved as if reality itself was a curtain he'd chosen to walk past. He said nothing, just looked at Jonas. His gaze dropped to the bloody bandage on Jonas's arm. He frowned, slow, deliberate, and shook his head. "That's bad," Eldridge said. His voice was soft, but it cut like a knife. "You're not recovering from this. That's a Lycan infection." Jonas snorted. "Don't you think I know it? Just because you've lived longer than the rest of us doesn't mean you see clearer. Frankly, I thought you'd be dead by now." The corners of Eldridge's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, more like irritation held in check. "Unless we fix that wound," he said coldly, "there are only two outcomes. Death or worse. You become one of them. I can't tell you which, and I don't care to find out." Jonas spat into the empty fireplace. "I know it. You don't need to preach, you old corpse." Eldridge's eyes narrowed. "There are two ways to deal with this. One is simple. We cut it off." Jonas barked a laugh, grim and sharp. "Wouldn't you like that?" Option 2, Eldridge continued, ignoring him, is a ritual. Old, dark. It will burn the infection out, but it leaves residue. Scars you can't see. They grow over time, fester. You might not notice them for years. Jonas studied him, expression hard as stone. He knew what Eldridge meant without saying it. The rot, the sickness that would gnaw at him decades later. Side effects, Jonas muttered. Figures. He lit a cigar with steady hands, the flame catching briefly in his dark eyes. He took a drag, exhaled smoke into the shadows. Do it. We've got a beast to hunt. Eldridge stepped closer, his shadow stretching long across the floor, swallowing the light. You don't understand what you're agreeing to. Jonas grinned, teeth flashing through the smoke. I understand better than you think. We kill it, or it kills us. That's all that matters. Eldridge's gaze lingered, then he nodded slowly, reluctantly. So be it. The candles guttered, the smoke thickened, and the room darkened to black. The mountains held secrets older than the town, older than the country itself. Beneath their jagged ridges, hidden deep in stone, the beast moved. It padded down a long, dark passage, claws scraping against rock. The walls glistened with moisture, etched with symbols that had been there for centuries. Cave paintings, crude, yet vivid. Wolves drawn larger than men, standing upright, crowned with horns of shadow, hunters painted fleeing. Their spears broken, their bodies torn. Beneath them, words no one alive could read, but the meaning was clear. The tribe feared something ancient. The beast paused, head turning to the wall. Its snarl echoed in the stone. The painted wolves stared back as though waiting. It moved deeper. The tunnel widened into a cavern. The moonlight slipped in through cracks above, painting silver across the floor. And there, shapes stirred. One by one, heads rose, eyes opened, glowing red in the dark. Shoulders heaved, claws scraped. Not one beast, not a lone monster, a pack. The cavern shook as their howls joined, rolling like thunder through the mountain. Tomorrow, the next moon, they would descend, and the town would not stand a chance. Back in the house, the ritual was done. Jonas Creed sat slumped against the wall, pale, sweat dripping from his brow. His arm was bandaged in dark cloth, the skin beneath still burning with unnatural fire. The candles guttered out, leaving only smoke and the dim glow of dusk pressing through the curtains. Eldridge stood over him, hands folded behind his back, voice cold. It's done. Don't thank me. Don't blame me either. You're not cured. It's bought you time. Nothing more. That wound will fester into something else. What? I can't say. But for now, you're alive. Jonas lit a cigar with trembling hands. His smile was sharp, defiant. Who cares what happens tomorrow? As long as today, I get to fight one more time. Eldridge's eyes narrowed. You think this is one beast, but I felt it, Jonas. That was no lone wolf. It's old, ancient, something tied to the blood of the first tribes who roamed these lands. What walks now is not just hunger, it's heritage. A curse born before men built walls. Jonas blew smoke into the dark, unshaken. Then we'll break it. You don't understand. Eldridge snapped, his voice rising for the first time. I am an elder. My power is shadow. Against Lycans, it's nothing. They tear through my kind like paper. I can wound them, distract them, but I cannot kill them. Jonas leaned forward, eyes like iron. Good thing I can. The two men locked stares. Contempt, rivalry, something close to respect. At last, Eldridge nodded slowly. Then we work together. My shadows will slow them, bind them, confuse them. You strike the killing blows. Jonas stood, swaying slightly, but his grip on the silver pole was steady. Sounds about right. You'll be the bait. I'll be the bullet. Eldridge's smile was thin, sharp, bitter, as always. Jonas stepped to the window, watching the sun bleed out behind the mountains. He spoke low, more to himself than to Eldridge. "When the night comes," he tightened his grip on the weapon, "it begins." Chapter 1. The Old Wound. The desert stretched endlessly under a swollen moon, the sands shimmering silver, shadows as deep as the ocean. Jonas Creed trudged across the dust, leather jacket brushing against his sides, cigar ember glowing faintly in the wind. Every step left a print that seemed swallowed almost immediately by the night. Eldridge drifted behind him like a shade, black garments brushing the earth, face pale and thin, eyes dark hollows that drank the light. He did not walk so much as glide, his presence bend in the silence of the desert. Jonas finally stopped on a ridge of stone, peering out across the wide, barren wastes. "Why the hell did you drag me out here?" His voice was rough, gravel sharpened by fatigue. "Town's back that way, and so's the trouble." Eldridge didn't answer at first. He lifted his chin, breathing in the air like a wolf, testing a scent. Then he spoke, his voice a whisper that still managed to cut the silence. "This land remembers," Jonas scoffed, biting down on the cigar. "Land don't remember a damn thing. People do." "Wrong," Eldridge hissed. He moved forward, placing a thin, white hand against the jagged face of a sun-bleached boulder. Stone keeps memory better than blood. Here, there was slaughter. I can feel it. Shadows still drip from the wound. Jonas tilted his head, annoyed but curious despite himself. "So what are you doing? Sniffing ghosts?" Eldridge turned, eyes catching moonlight, hollow yet burning. "I'm opening a door. You asked where these beasts come from. The answer lies in the marrow of this desert. Watch." He extended both hands, thin fingers curling into the air. Dark smoke leaped from his skin like mist seeping from cracked stone. The desert wind shifted, low and moaning. Jonas narrowed his eyes, cocking the shotgun in his arms, though he made no move to stop him. "Don't summon anything you can't put back, old man." Eldridge gave the smallest of smiles, though it looked more like a tear in dead flesh. "I'm not summoning, I am remembering." The smoke bled outward across the sand, and then, like the world itself blinked, the desert was gone. Flames rose instead, fire pits, torches, a village of hide tents and wooden poles beneath the same mountains Jonas had scouted days before. Drums thudded softly in the distance. Figures moved through the firelight, painted faces, spears of stone and bone. Jonas lowered his shotgun slowly, his voice hushed. "What the hell?" "This," Eldridge said, "is where it began." The vision sharpened. A young warrior stood at the edge of the firelight, bare-chested, tall, lean muscle drawn tight across his frame, black hair braided with bone beads, obsidian knife at his belt, bow slung across his shoulder. His eyes were sharp, restless, questioning. "Who's that?" Jonas muttered. Eldridge studied the boy with something between curiosity and pity. "Tahu," he whispered. "A hunter. One of the first to stand against them." Jonas spat dust from his cigar. "And? Did he kill any?" "No." Eldridge's voice darkened. "But he tried. And trying, when the world insists you can't, that is what makes him worth remembering." The vision lingered, Tahu stood alone on the ridge, staring toward the mountains, firelight painting his face in flickers of red and gold. Beyond those peaks, shadows moved, shapes too tall, too jagged, too wrong to be wolves. Eldridge closed his eyes, and the desert night shivered with the memory of the first blood spilled. Jonas leaned on his shotgun, gaze fixed. So this kid, it was me before me? No, Eldridge said coldly. He was himself, but like you, he was foolish enough to think man can stand against God's curse. The drums grew louder, the fire burned brighter. Tahu's eyes locked on the horizon, as if he already knew what awaited, and then the vision froze, suspended between past and present, before the desert wind ripped through again, carrying them both back to the cold night of 1983. Jonas exhaled, smoke curling from his cigar, eyes still hard. Fine, he muttered. Show me his fight. Let me see how bad it gets. Eldridge's smile cut the dark. Oh, Jonas, it always gets worse. The desert around them pulsed with the promise of old blood, and the story shifted toward the night of Tahu's first hunt. Chapter 2. The gods heard. The fire crackled in the center of the village, sparks rising into the night sky like stars drifting home. Tahu sat cross-legged, his obsidian knife resting across his knees, his eyes fixed on the mountains. Every full moon, his people prayed the drums would be enough, that the fire would keep the shadows at bay. But every full moon, something was taken. An elder's voice cut through the silence, dry and cracked as old wood. You look at the mountains again, Tahu. He turned his head. The old man, Chief Akacheta, leaned heavily on his staff, face painted with soot and ash. His eyes were milky with age, yet carried fire. A circle of tribesfolk gathered, listening. They come from there, Tahu said, pointing with his knife. Every moon, they steal our people, our children. They do not take all, only enough to leave us bleeding but alive. Why? Why not wipe us from the earth? The murmurs of the circle grew. Some lowered their heads, some shivered. The chief raised his hand, and silence fell. You are young. You see only the hunger, but there is more. The God who sent them does not waste his children. Lycan, another elder whispered, the name carried like a curse. Chief Akacheta nodded. Yes, Lycan, God of the moon and of the Lycans. His will runs in the blood of those creatures. They are not here to kill us for sport. They are here to guard. Tahu frowned. Guard what? There is nothing here but dust and rock. The elder's staff struck the earth. Not dust, not rock. The mountain is hollow. Inside it lies what Lycan left. An old wound in the world. His beasts circle it as wolves circle their den. They keep men from trespassing, and when they hunger, they feed on us. Just enough to keep the pack strong, just enough to remind us the mountain is not ours. Another tribesman, voice shaking, asked, Then why do we not leave this land? The chief's eyes narrowed. Because it is ours. Our ancestors spilled blood to keep it, and our dead sleep beneath it. If we leave, we abandon them. We abandon who we are. Tahu clenched his jaw, fingers tight around his knife. So we accept being prey. We wait every moon to see who will be taken next. The chief's gaze fell heavy on him. No, we endure. That is what it means to live under Lycanor's eye. Man is not master here. Tahu rose to his feet, his shadow cutting across the firelight. Then I will not endure. I will hunt. Gasps circled the fire. A woman pulled her child close. Another elder shook his head violently. You cannot hunt the gods' herd, the chief warned. They are not wolves. They are his guardians. They kill not from malice, but from command. Strike one, and more will come. They will tear you down until nothing is left. Tahu's eyes burned in the firelight. Better to die on my feet than watch them steal my people on my knees. The fire snapped loud, showering sparks into the night. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the chief leaned close, his voice soft but sharp as a blade. If you walk this path, boy, you do not hunt beasts. You defy a god. Tahu turned back to the mountains, the peaks dark against the swollen moon. Somewhere beyond them, shapes moved in the trees, watching, waiting. And though fear coiled in his gut, he felt something else too. The certainty that his life would be measured not in how long he endured, but in what he chose to face. Chapter 3. The Last Hunt of Tahu. The moon rode high over the mountains, pale and merciless. Tahu climbed alone, obsidian knife in hand, bow across his back, the cold cutting his skin. The fires of his village flickered far below, the voices of his people fading to whispers. He would not die waiting. He would not bow. The cliffs grew jagged, every shadow twisting into shapes that might be claws. The drums of the village still echoed faintly, but here, among the stones, the only music was his breath and the scrape of his sandals on the rock. From the ridge, he saw it. Tracks, massive, pressed deep into the dirt, upright, not the paws of wolves. The god's herd had passed this way. Tahu whispered to himself, "If I bleed tonight, I bleed standing." He stepped into the forested hollow. The air grew thick, cold, heavy with musk. The first growl came from his left, then another from his right. Soon the sound circled him. Low guttural thunder in the trees. They emerged from the dark like living shadows. 3, 4, 5 of them, upright, eyes burning yellow, claws glinting like obsidian, each taller than any man, shoulders wide, muscles corded with fury. They did not rush him. They stalked, slow, deliberate, like predators amused by prey's defiance. Tahu planted his feet, drew his bow, and let an arrow fly. It struck the first beast in the chest. The Lycan staggered, then ripped the shaft free and let out a roar that shook the stones. They came. The first claw slashed. Tahu dove, his knife cutting across fur and skin. Blood hissed like steam, but the wound meant nothing. Another struck, raking across his side, throwing him into the dirt. He spat blood, forced himself up, knife still in hand. "Not on my knees," he snarled. They swarmed him. A claw ripped across his shoulder. Another sent him spinning against a tree. Bones cracked. His body screamed. Yet he rose again. Arrowless, knife shaken in his grip, he charged. He slashed one across the face, kicked another in the chest. Every strike was answered with blows that would break any man. But Tahu would not break. The pack circled him, snarling, their patience thinning. They lunged together, and his cry rose to meet theirs. Not fear, not surrender, but defiance that split the night. And then, silence. The moon shone down on the hollow silver light, painting blood across the stones. The pack stood still, their eyes fixed on the crumpled figure of the warrior who had not yielded. They did not feed. They did not finish him. They simply circled, as if waiting. The vision blurred. The desert wind returned. Jonas blinked, shotgun heavy in his hands, Eldridge's smoke still curling in the night air. That's it. He's dead. Eldridge's hollow eyes gleamed. No. Death was denied him. The god's herd has uses for men who will not bend. He was taken, changed. What he became is not for you to know. Not yet. Jonas spat in the dirt, jaw set. Damn stubborn kid. I like him. Eldridge's thin lips curled into something almost like a smile. Stubborn men do not end. They endure, but endurance has a price. The desert stretched silent. The mountains loom in like watchmen of an ancient curse. Chapter 4. The Weight of the Mountain. The grand house was quiet. Too quiet for a town bracing for slaughter. The windows were boarded, lamps dimmed, the air thick with the smell of smoke and dust. Jonas Creed sat at the long wooden table, cigar smoke curling above him like restless spirits. His bandaged arm ached, but he ignored it, loading shells into his shotgun with mechanical precision. Eldridge stood near the window, pale fingers brushing the curtain aside. His sunken eyes scanned the dark street, where nervous townsfolk scurried to their homes, bolting doors, whispering prayers. His voice was low, almost distant. "They come again tonight." Jonas grunted. "Yeah, no kidding. Every month, like clockwork, which means we prepare." He snapped the shotgun closed, the sound sharp in the silence. "They're coming, and this time, we don't run." Eldridge didn't turn. His gaze lingered on the mountain looming in the distance, a black shadow against the swollen moon. "You think too small, Hunter. You see only the pack. I feel something else. The beasts are not our true enemy." Jonas looked up, eyes hard, smoke curling from his lips. "Not our enemy? They've taken people, ripped them apart. They've killed more than half this town. Hell." He lifted his bandaged arm, flexing the wounded flesh beneath the cloth. "They've already killed me. Just slower. You call that not an enemy?" Finally, Eldridge turned, his gaunt face half in shadow, half in pale lamplight. "I tell you what I know. They take, yes. They kill, yes. But it is not wanton slaughter. It is balance. They are bound, Jonas. Bound to guard something buried deep in that mountain. Something old. Something Lycanor himself sealed away." His voice dropped into a whisper. "Should we destroy them, we may unleash what they keep caged." Jonas rose from his chair, boots heavy against the floorboards. He looked at Eldridge with a fire that burned past reason. "I don't give a damn what's in that mountain. They took something from me the second their claws cut me. They took my life, my years, my future. So I'm going to take everything from them, cage or no cage, balance or no balance. I kill them, Eldridge, all of them." The vampire's expression was unreadable, but the faintest trace of sorrow flickered across his hollow eyes. "Then may the shadows pity us when the seal breaks." Before Jonas could answer, a sound shattered the silence. Splintering wood, glass breaking, screams rising in the street. The boards rattled on the windows as something massive tore through a nearby house. Jonas cocked the shotgun with a grin that was more snarl than smile. Showtime. Eldridge moved to the door, his black drape stirring like smoke. From the street came the howl, deeper, louder, more than one. The pack had come, and this time the night would bleed. Chapter 5. The seal weakens. The town exploded in chaos. Windows shattered, doors ripped off their hinges, barns collapsed as towering shadows swept through the streets. The Lycans had come. Not one, not two, but a full pack. Their claws raking through wood, their howls rising together like thunder. The townsfolk vanished into cellars, closets, hidden crawl spaces. They dared not fight, not this night. The only sound was the crashing of beasts and the terrified silence of those praying not to be found. Inside the great house, Jonas Creed paced like a caged wolf. His leather jacket shifted with every step, cigar clamped in his teeth, shotgun in his hands. His eyes burned with something close to joy. They're here. Finally. I was beginning to think they'd forgotten me. Eldridge lingered in the shadows of the room, his thin, pale face turned towards the street. His dark eyes glowed faintly. "You itch for death, Hunter. There are too many. Even you cannot dance with them all. Jonas grinned, teeth glinting in the lamplight. Watch me. You forget, Eldridge hissed. I am an elder. A vampire. Against Lycans I stand no chance. Their god made them my ruin. Then don't fight, Jonas said, loading shells with a snap. Support. Hide me. Distract them. Buy me seconds, and I'll show you how to make those seconds count. Eldridge's eyes narrowed. I can cloak you for a time. Shroud your body in shadow. Confuse their eyes. Bend their senses. But it is not armor. They will still smell your blood. Jonas's laugh was rough. Feral. That's all I need. Confuse them long enough for me to swing. That's the trick, Eldridge. I don't need to kill them. I just need to enjoy the fight. You're mad, Eldridge said coldly. Damn right. Jonas cocked the shotgun. Now give me the darkness. With a reluctant gesture, Eldridge spread his hands. A ripple of black smoke slid from the corners of the room, wrapping Jonas like a second skin. His figure dimmed, his outline blurred, as though the shadows themselves obeyed him. Jonas stepped into the street. The pack was waiting. The first Lycan charged, claws flashing like silver scythes. Jonas ducked, the blow slicing empty air, and slammed the butt of his shotgun into the beast's jaw. No damage, but the wolf reeled, confused, snapping at nothing as shadows blurred Jonas's position. Another lunged. Jonas spun beneath it, sliding in the dirt, blasting a round of silver pellets into its chest. Smoke hissed from the wound, the beast snarling, enraged but unbroken. Jonas spat his cigar stub into the dust and smiled wide. This, he growled, is living. The street became chaos. 3 Lycans tore at the shadows, claws swiping where Jonas seemed to be, but each time he was just out of reach. He ducked, dodged, slammed silver rods into their ribs, swung chains of wolfsbane across their faces. Every strike drew howls of fury, but no victory. The beasts were too strong, too fast, too many. Eldridge stood back, cloaked in the doorway, his gaunt hands weaving smoke, bending sightlines, feeding Jonas seconds at a time. His face betrayed no fear, only calculation. You can't win this, he muttered to himself. But Jonas didn't care. He moved like a man in his element, sweat and blood mixing with dirt, eyes alight with madness. For every blow that sent him sprawling, he rose again. For every claw that ripped his jacket, he laughed and struck back harder. And then the earth shook. The Lycans froze mid-howl. Their heads turned in unison towards the mountain. Jonas paused, shotgun lowered, chest heaving. From the ridges above, a low rumble rolled through the desert like distant thunder. The ground cracked, stones split, dust poured down the slopes. At the mountain's base, where the old caves yawned black, a light glimmered, red, unnatural, pulsing like a heartbeat. Eldridge's eyes widened, his whisper cut colder than any howl. The seal. The Lycans bared their fangs, not in triumph, but in fear. Their howls rose not to taunt, but to warn. And then the mountain split further, glowing cracks bleeding fire across the stone. From within, 2 enormous eyes opened, not yellow, not wolf, but something older, deeper. They glowed through the fissure, cold and merciless. Jonas exhaled, half a grin pulling at his lips. Well, guess the night just got interesting. The mountain groaned, the eyes burned brighter. End of Part 3. Jonas Creed, the Werewolf Hunter. Part 4, coming soon. Be ready, and don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss the hunt. Chapter 1. The Rise of Vaelak the Unbound. Before men set foot upon the plains, before villages were raised from dust and fire, the land already belonged to beasts. Out of the darkness of creation, when Lycan first spread his curse across the wilderness, packs of Lycans rose beneath the swollen moon. Among them, one rose higher, faster, stronger than all others. His name was whispered as Vaelak. Vaelak was power without restraint. His frame towered above the rest, fur black as midnight, muscles knotted with raw strength. His ears cut the sky like blades, his muzzle long and cruel, his claws gleaming like shards of obsidian. He moved with speed unnatural, tearing through prey with no thought of the pack. Where others hunted to feed, Vaelak hunted to annihilate. In those first nights, the earth itself trembled at his hunger. He did not wait for the moon's calling. He prowled without order, without patience, his rage spilling into every shadow. The other Lycans circled him in fear. Some bowed, some fled, but none could challenge him outright. Lycan watched. The god of the Lycans, father of the curse, had forged Vaelak as a test, the first vessel for his power. Strength was there, ferocity was there, the spark of leadership, the balance of hunger and control was not. Instead, Vaelak's howl was madness. His pack was no brotherhood, but a slaughterhouse. Yet in Vaelak's eyes, burning like two red suns, there was only desire. To be more, to rise higher, to be alpha over all. He stood upon the ridge of the mountains, head tilted back, ears sharp to the sky, his roar echoing like a storm across the endless plains. He imagined himself, crowned by moonlight, master of every beast, heir to Lycan's power. But in the shadows beyond the fire of the god, Lycanor's gaze did not warm. It weighed, it judged. The creator of the curse had seen his creation's flaw. He had given Vaelak hunger, but no heart, power, but no purpose, teeth, but no reason to sheath them. Still, Vaelak howled louder, as though he could shatter the heavens and claim them for his own. And from above, unseen by him, Lycan whispered a single word into the darkness, not yet spoken, not yet revealed, but heavy enough to shift the earth beneath Vaelak's feet. The beast roared at the moon, deaf to the sentence already forming in his god's silence. Chapter 2. The Savage Within. The moon hung swollen over the plains, and the Lycans gathered. They came in a circle, clawed hands pressed to the earth, their glowing eyes turned toward the one they called leader, a grizzled, scarred wolf beast who had stood among them for many hunts. His presence was steady, his howl kept the pack bound in unity. Until Vaelak came, the failed alpha strode into their circle like a storm. His black fur rippled with every movement, his ears cut the night like spears, and his molten eyes burned, not with kinship, but with hunger. No greeting, no ritual, only silence, broken by his low growl. The leader stepped forward, tall and firm, baring his teeth in warning. For a moment, the pack believed there might be order, that even this towering beast would bow to the law of the Alpha. But Vaelak did not bow. He did not wait. He struck. One swipe of his massive claw, and the leader was hurled across the circle, bones snapping, his body broken before he even hit the ground. The pack howled in horror. Before the echoes faded, Vaelak was upon him, crushing his throat beneath claw and fang, tearing until silence fell. Blood darkened the earth. The pack cowered. Some tried to flee, some whimpered, but Vaelak's snarl froze them all. His red eyes scanned each face, not as a brother, not as kin, but as prey. He turned not against the moon, nor against their enemies. He turned against them. One Lycan lifted its head, desperate to howl in mourning. Vaelak's hand crushed its jaw shut. He hurled the beast aside, as though it were nothing, snapping its ribs against stone. Another cowered low to the ground. Vaelak kicked it into the dust. Another dared to bare its teeth. He tore its arm free and left it writhing. The pack's unity shattered. Their howls turned to screams. No law of blood bound them now. Only fear of the monster who claimed to lead. Vaelak threw his head back, his howl shaking the plains. It was not a call to hunt, not a cry of brotherhood. It was a cry of power. His power and his alone. The others bowed because they must. Not from respect, not from loyalty, but from terror. And from the shadows above, Lycanor watched. The god of the Lycans, his eyes dark with judgment. For in Vaelak, he saw not Alpha, not Protector, not Balance. He saw a beast too savage to be called son, too vicious to be called ruler. The earth trembled, for his time of reckoning was drawing close. Chapter 3. Judgment of the God. Upon the jagged crown of the mountain, beneath a swollen moon, Vaelak stood alone. His shadow stretched long across the plains, his black fur whipping in the wind, his burning red eyes cast towards the heavens. He lifted his head and howled, not as a call to hunt, not as a bond of kin, but as a claim, a challenge. His roar was a dominance made sound, an attempt to crown himself Alpha of all creation, and the heavens answered. The air thickened, the earth shuddered, clouds bled silver light across the sky. Then came the voice, not from any throat, not from any place. It filled the plains, the mountain, the marrow of every creature who heard it. It was Lycanor, god of the Lycans.
Power you have, Vaelak, but Alpha you are not. Alpha is not brute strength. Alpha is not savage dominance. An Alpha is balance. An Alpha is nature. An Alpha leads, and you devour your own. You are a beast of hunger, and nothing more.
The pack, far below, trembled, ears pressed to the earth. But Vaelak only roared louder, snapping his jaws at the sky, clawing at the air, his howl a scream of rage. He bared his defiance, even against the god who had shaped him. Lycanor's voice rolled again, deeper now, edged with sorrow.
You are my creation, my firstborn shadow. I will not destroy you, but neither will I let you rule. Mercy is the chain I place upon you.
The mountain split beneath Vaelak's feet. Flames of red light rose, swallowing his towering form. He thrashed and clawed, but invisible bonds wrapped him, dragging him into the abyss below. His howl shook the heavens, echoing across time, promising vengeance, even against the god of Lycans. Then the voice spoke once more, not to Vaelak, but to the pack.
You shall be his wardens, chosen by my hand, each of you gifted with a primal essence. Fire, stone, shadow, wind, and bone. Your presence binds the seal. While you remain, you cannot rise. One by one each moon, one of you may feed, but never all. Should you abandon your post, his prison will shatter, and the world will feel his wrath.
The pack bowed low, their glowing eyes dim with dread as the mountain sealed itself shut. The rumbling ceased. The red glow sank into stone and silence fell across the plains. Deep below, Vaelak's howl lingered, a cry of rage and defiance, a promise whispered through the ages. One night, the seal will break, and even you, Lycanor, will fall. Legend of the sacred mountain. The mountain rose like a jagged tooth from the flat horizon of the plains, a place the tribes called sacred, long before the white man ever set foot upon the land. To the Lakota, it was a site of vision, where warriors fasted and prayed to see the spirits. To the Cheyenne, it was a place of warning, where voices in the wind carried messages from beyond. To the Blackfoot, it was forbidden ground, where hunters whispered that the earth itself breathed in the night, but all the tribes agreed on one truth: something lived beneath it. The elders told it as an urban legend, a campfire tale for children, yet spoken with eyes too serious to be dismissed. They said in the time before men, when only gods and beasts roamed, the wolf spirits walked upright as men. They were the servants of Lycan, the great wolf god, who placed them upon the plains as guardians. Yet one among them turned wrong, too powerful, too vicious. He killed not for balance, but for joy. He devoured not only deer and buffalo, but his own kind. His name was not spoken aloud, for to speak it was to call his hunger. The elders only called him the Failed Alpha. It was said Lycan split the mountain open and cast him beneath, binding him in stone. To keep him locked away, 5 Lycans were chosen, each gifted with a fragment of the primal world: fire, stone, wind, bone, and shadow. So long as they remained upon the plains, the mountain would hold. But if they abandoned it, even for a single night, the Failed Alpha would rise. The people believed this with all their soul. They said that was why each full moon the howls rang out. The pack was not hunting for sport. They were feeding the prison, taking life to strengthen the seal. When the Europeans arrived, they laughed at these stories. They cut trees on the mountain slopes, hunted the bison that roamed its shadow, but strange things happened to them. Horses would spook and break their necks on rocks. Campfires would gutter as if choked by invisible hands. Entire groups vanished, their rifles and wagons found days later, torn apart, but no bodies left behind. The settlers gave the place names like Devil's Ridge or Hell's Spine. They whispered, in their own tongue, of giant wolves with red eyes that stalked their camps, seen only in moonlight. Yet they never stayed long. They built no towns near the mountain. They said the ground itself was cursed. Among the tribes, the story endured. They told their children, do not wander near the sacred mountain when the moon is full, for the howls you hear are not wolves of flesh and blood, but the guardians, chosen against their will, feeding the hunger of what lies below. And always the warning ended the same, a whisper in the crackling of the fire. If ever the guardians fall, if ever the pack scatters, the mountain will break, and the first beast will walk again. Chapter 5. Preparing for the beast. The great house was dark, lit only by the orange flicker of oil lamps. Shadows crawled across the boarded windows as the sound of the last howls faded into silence outside. At the heavy oak table, Henry Crow shut the old leather-bound book with a dull thud. His hand shook as he laid it aside, his cane resting against his knee. His voice was dry, but his words carried the weight of generations. The tribes were right. The mountain was sacred because it was a prison. That howl you heard tonight, it was not hunger, not hunting, it was warning. The guardians have left their post, and if the seal weakens any further, the one beneath will rise. Across from him, Eldridge leaned into the shadows, his pale face lit by the glow of the lamp. His dark eyes narrowed, and for a moment he looked far away, as if listening to something beyond the walls. I have felt it, Eldridge murmured. A power, old as the plains, older than men. The guardians bow to it in fear. This is not a beast of flesh alone, it is what they called the Failed Alpha. Jonas, leaning against the wall, exhaled cigar smoke and smirked through the haze. His jet black hair caught the firelight, his chiseled face unreadable. Failed or not, it bleeds, and if it bleeds, I can kill it. He pushed off the wall and walked outside. The night air was cold, still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. His black Dodge Charger sat beneath the moon, its paint gleaming like oil. Jonas opened the trunk and pulled out a massive rifle, an old elephant gun, its barrel gleaming with fresh silver inlays, its stock reinforced with dark steel. He ran his hand across the weapon with a soldier's affection. "I keep this for special occasions. Looks like tonight qualifies." Henry Crow's eyes widened at the size of the gun. That thing can tear through stone." Jonas cracked the barrel open, slid in 2 thick silver cartridges, and snapped it shut with a metallic click. He grinned. "Good, then it should do just fine on a mountain." From the doorway, Eldridge's voice cut through the night. His tone was low, but certain. "Do not deceive yourself, Jonas. This is not like the others. I can feel its hunger. Even sealed, it will not fall to steel alone. You will need me, and even then, perhaps not even that will be enough." Jonas looked back, the cigar glowing at the corner of his mouth. "I don't need enough. I just need a fight worth taking." Henry Crow lowered his eyes, clutching his cane, as the first tremors rumbled from deep within the mountain beyond the plain. Chapter 6. The Failed Alpha walks. The mountain split with a sound like the sky tearing open. Red light bled from the fissures, smoke pouring out, and from within came a silhouette that had not walked the world for centuries. Vaelak, his eyes burned like twin suns, fire trapped in the skull of a beast. His chest rose and fell with the hunger of eternity, his claws dripping shadows as he stepped forward into the night. 2 of the guardian Lycans had returned ahead of the others, their howls echoing with duty, their eyes still bound to the primal law of Lysanor. They froze when they saw him, their heads lowered, not in reverence, but in dread. Vaelak snarled. He struck before they could even lift their claws. One swipe shattered ribs, another tore flesh from bone. Their bodies fell broken, their howls silenced in seconds. But death was not enough for him. He lingered, he tore at them, savored their cries, drank in their agony as if it were wine. His laughter was not sound, but violence itself. Plains shook as he emerged fully from the mountain. He lifted his head and howled, a cry not of hunger, not of kinship, but of dominion. This was his land, his throne, his right. The remaining guardians arrived, 4 in all, their silvered essence trembling within them. They circled, but none dared strike. Their eyes burned with fear, for even blessed by Lysanor's primal gifts, they knew they were no match for the beast who had once been their prison. One, smaller than the rest, stepped forward. It stood upright, claws ready, defiance etched into its trembling frame. It lunged, desperate to honor the god's command. Vaelak swatted it aside like an insect. Its body tumbled into the dirt, broken, forgotten. The failed Alpha turned toward the others, his chest heaving, claws raised. His howl thundered across the plains, promising slaughter. Vaelak raised his claws, ready to tear into the rest. And then the night was split by a gunshot. A blast like thunder slammed into his chest, knocking him backward in a shower of dust and sparks. He staggered, smoke rising from the burning silver wound, his roar shaking the air. Across the plain, the roar of an engine cut through the silence. A black Dodge Charger crawled into view, its headlights burning, its frame gleaming like a predator's eyes. The driver's window rolled down, a huge barrel gleamed in the moonlight, smoke still curling from its muzzle. A voice bellowed across the plains, raw and fearless. "This is what I live for. This is what I'll die for." The Charger's engine growled. Vaelak's eyes flared with fury. The Guardians froze. Caught between awe and dread, the planes themselves held their breath. End of Part 4. Part 5 coming soon. Chapter 1. The Betrayal of the Guardians. The plains thundered with howls. Dust rose in violent spirals as Vaelak stood tall, chest burning from the silver sting of Jonas's shot. His red eyes glowed hotter, rage twisting his monstrous snarl. The Guardians formed a half circle before him. Only 3 remained, or so Jonas thought. 2 braced for battle, their claws glinting in the moonlight, primal essence humming in their veins. The 3rd, smaller, crouched apart, its glowing silver eyes half closed as though in trance. It neither moved nor howled, it simply watched. Jonas spat his cigar into the dirt, reloaded his elephant gun, and grinned. Finally, let's dance! The first Guardian lunged, primal fire swirling around its claws. Vaelak swatted it aside with contemptuous ease. It rolled across the ground, rose, and came again, only to be torn open at the chest by a single strike. Blood stained the dust. The second leapt high, primal wind whipping around its form. For a heartbeat, it looked as though it might land true, but Vaelak caught it, mid-air, his claws clamping down with a sickening crack. He hurled the Guardian's limp body aside like broken prey. The 3rd Guardian did not move. Its eyes glowed brighter, silver light pulsing faintly from its chest, as if it fed on what was unfolding. Jonas narrowed his eyes. What the hell are you? But Vaelak's roar cut him off. The failed Alpha turned, his gaze locking on Jonas. Jonas raised the elephant gun, fired. The shot slammed into Vaelak's shoulder, staggering him but not stopping him. The beast charged, claws carving furrows in the earth. Jonas rolled, drew his sawed-off shotgun, and fired both barrels into its chest. Silver burned, smoke curled. Vaelak howled, then kept coming. From the shadows, Eldridge moved his hands like a puppeteer. Dark tendrils of shadow coiled around Vaelak's arms, slowing his strike, turning claws by inches. Jonas moved with the rhythm, dodging, striking, firing again. The duel became a dance. The mind of man against the fury of a god's mistake. Even shadows cannot hold forever. Vaelak broke free with a roar. His claw connected at last. A sweeping blow across Jonas's chest. The hunter was lifted from his feet, his body crashing into the dirt with bone-rattling force. His elephant gun spun out of reach. Eldridge's eyes widened. Shadows rushed to cloak Jonas's body as Vaelak loomed overhead. The vampire was too far. Jonas lay still, breath shallow, his body broken. For the first time, silence fell over the plains. The 3rd Guardian, the one who had sat apart, unmoving, opened its eyes fully. The silver glow within them was strange, cold, watching. The battle was not yet over. It had only just begun. Chapter 2. The warrior forged. The memory returned like fire through the ages. Tahu, the young warrior of the plains, stood on the cliffs as the moon glowed silver above. His chest was painted with ochre, his knife in hand, his eyes burning with the will to never bow. He had leapt into the jaws of the beasts that stalked his people. The Lycans had surrounded him. 5, their eyes burning silver. They struck, claws rending his flesh. His chest tore open, his blood painted the dirt. Yet Tahu did not fall to his knees. He rose swaying, knife still in hand. His voice was hoarse, but it carried. I will not be prey. I will not be slave. If I must die, I die on my feet. The largest Lycan lunged for the kill, but the ground shook. Above them, the sky split with light. A voice filled the plains, vast and terrible. Lysano, bravery is the marrow of the Alpha. Compassion is the heart. But you, Tahu, are neither Alpha nor prey. You are something else. You are my blade. The wounds across Tahu's chest began to glow, the torn flesh knitting together, his bones cracked, reshaping, his skin tearing and healing all at once. His eyes blazed with silver fire as fur burst from his arms. His scream became a howl. The Lycans fell back, their heads bowed, for they knew this was not one of them, not bound as they were. This was chosen. Where Tahu, the man, had stood, now rose the warrior Lycan, larger than the rest, his body honed with the strength of the wolf and the will of a man who refused to break. His ears stood sharp to the sky, his lupine snout curled with a snarl, but his eyes still burned with the fire of the warrior who had chosen death before surrender. He stood among the pack, not their alpha, not their equal, but their eternal protector. Lysanor's voice rolled once more through the night. When the seal breaks, when the failed Alpha rises, you will be there, not as guardian, but as my hand, my warrior. The howl of Tahu, no longer man, not fully beast, rose into the sky, carrying across the plains, echoing through centuries. And so it was that there were not 5 guardians, but 6, the last hidden, forgotten in time, until the day his purpose would come. Chapter 3. The warrior revealed. The smaller Lycan stood apart, its silver eyes closed, its body trembling as though some deep current surged within. Then slowly, it began to rise. The glow in its chest pulsed, spreading across its veins like fire through roots. Its frame swelled, muscle tightening, fur bristling. The trembling form grew taller, broader, until it stood eye to eye with Vaelak himself. What had seemed a lesser wolf now loomed as his equal, radiant with Lysano's power. The earth shivered, dust rose. The guardians bowed low, for they knew the truth. This was no ordinary beast. This was the warrior. Vaelak's red eyes narrowed, his lips peeled back, a snarl splitting into a roar. It was not fear in his gaze, but fury. The rage of a creature denied its throne once again. With a thunderous howl, he turned from Jonas, turned from Eldridge, and hurled himself at the warrior. The two collided, claw to claw, fang to fang. The sound was not battle, it was earthquake. The ground split beneath their feet, waves of dust exploding outward. Jonas stirred where he had fallen. His chest ached, his breath ragged, but his eyes opened to the sight of monsters waging war. He coughed, spat blood, and forced himself upright. Jesus Christ, he muttered, half in awe, half in thrill. What the hell is that? Beside him, Eldridge leaned against the wall, his body wan, shadows dripping from his fingertips like blood. His eyes were sunken, but still sharp. He whispered, voice hoarse, "Not what? Who?" "That is the boy. Tahu. Lysano made him more than man, more than beast. The warrior Lycan." Jonas blinked, smirk tugging at his bruised jaw. The kid, huh? Knew there was something in him. Always could tell. The battle raged on. Vaelak struck with claws like spears, blows that could level trees. Tahu met each strike with equal force, his body glowing with silver fire. The Failed Alpha's rage howled across the plains. The warrior's defiance answered with earth-shaking roars. Eldridge slumped, his shadows faltering. He had spent himself cloaking Jonas, and now, what strength remained, he funneled into the warrior. His hand shook, every whisper of darkness guiding Tahu's movements, tilting the fight by inches. Jonas, slowly recovering, sat upright, watching as the titans tore at one another. His hand brushed the elephant gun lying in the dirt beside him, but for once he didn't reach for it. For once, even Jonas Creed knew this fight was beyond his trigger finger. Hours bled into the night. Dust clouds rose like storms. The mountain groaned as if remembering its prisoner. And still, the warrior and the Failed Alpha struck, fell, and rose again. When at last the dust settled, both stood, heaving, claws dripping, eyes burning. The fight was not over. It had only just begun. Chapter 4. Even again. The ground split as the warrior Lycan and Vaelak charged once more. Their roars tore through the plains like clashing storms, claws and teeth meeting in a violent thunder. Dust clouds spiraled skyward as the two titans struck, the sound of flesh and bone echoing like war drums. Jonas steadied himself against a broken wall, his elephant gun in hand. He could see it now. Tahu was faltering, his movements slower, his breathing heavy, his once radiant silver aura flickering like a dying flame. He spat into the dirt and growled toward the shadows. "Eldridge, aid him. That thing's too strong." In the corner, Eldridge leaned heavily on the wall, shadows slipping from his fingertips like leaking in blood. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. He shook his head slowly. "I am done. My energy is almost gone." Jonas turned to him, eyes narrowing. "You old bastard." Then, without hesitation, Jonas pulled his collar down, exposing his neck. "Okay, take it." A thin smile curled across Eldridge's cracked lips. His fangs extended, gleaming faintly in the moonlight. "You should be careful what you offer." He struck. The bite was sharp, precise. Jonas clenched his teeth, refusing to cry out. His fists balled, the world spinning as the ancient vampire drank. "Not too much," Jonas growled through clenched teeth. "We're even. Just even." Eldridge released him, wiping his mouth, his eyes bright once more. His voice was dry, almost amused. "Even again. I don't know how many times you expect me to save you, Jonas, and still call it even." Jonas staggered but smirked, jamming a shell into the elephant gun. "As many times as it takes." In the distance, the battle raged. Eldridge, now slightly rejuvenated, lifted his arms once more. Shadows surged across the dust, weaving around Tahu, lending him strength, slowing Vaelak's claws by inches. Jonas raised the elephant gun and fired. The silvered shot slammed into Vaelak's side, sparks flaring. But the beast barely staggered. His rage only deepened. With a roar, Vaelak unleashed a storm of blows. Each strike landed heavier than the last, claws rending fur and flesh. Tahu stumbled, struck again and again, his body unable to keep pace with the endless storm. The warrior Lycan faltered. His silver aura dimmed. His claws sank into the dirt. His chest heaved, and then Vaelak's claw tore across him. In one final, brutal strike, Tahu collapsed. His massive Lycan form trembled, shrank, and faded. Fur receded, muscle shrank. In the dust lay only a man, young, scarred, bloodied, his chest rising shallowly. Tahu. The warrior was gone. Vaelak turned, his burning red eyes locking on Jonas and Eldridge. Dust swirled around him. his breath a furnace of rage. Jonas lifted his gun, spat blood, and chuckled grimly. Oh, crap. He cracked the gun open, sliding another shell inside. His grin widened. Oh well, I've got to go out. Might as well be to the toughest son of a bitch there is. Vaelak lowered his head and howled, the sound shaking the very bones of the earth. The plains waited. Chapter 5. The Voice of the Sky. The earth shuddered beneath their feet. Vaelak lowered his head, his burning red eyes blazing brighter than the moon itself. His massive chest heaved, his claws gleamed with blood and shadow, and with a roar that shook the heavens, he launched forward like a storm given flesh. Jonas Creed stood in the middle of the open plains, black leather jacket torn at the shoulder, cigar ash still glowing faintly. He raised the elephant gun and fired. The silvered shell burst with thunder, but when it struck, the beast barely flinched. Vaelak barreled on, unstoppable, each stride like a hammer against the earth. Jonas glanced at Eldridge, who staggered in the shadows, his gaunt face pale and drained. The vampire's hands twitched weakly, shadows slipping like smoke between his fingers, powerless against the monster's fury. Jonas growled, "This is it, old friend. Just go. Disappear into your shadows. I'll hold him off as long as I can. At least one of us will get out of this alive." Eldridge gave a weary smile, black eyes glinting. "And give you all the glory? I'd never hear the end of it." They stood together, shoulder to shoulder on the open plain, two relics facing something neither could defeat. The ground quaked as Vaelak closed the distance. His roar tore through the night, a sound of hatred without end. And then the world slowed. The beast's charge faltered, his massive form dragging as though caught in invisible threads of time. The dust in the air froze mid-swell. Clouds above stopped their restless drifting, and even the wolves' howls died on their lips. The plains held their breath. From the heavens came a voice, vast and ancient, rolling like thunder. "I am Lycanor. You cannot defeat my child, yet I will not destroy him. He is mine, my kin." Eldridge raised his hollow eyes to the frozen sky. "Then what do you want of us? God of Lycans, I possess nothing that can end this. Your beasts are beyond me. Even my shadow bends before them." The voice came again, echoing through stone and sky alike. "You misunderstand me, Elder. I did not say you could defeat him. I said you have the power to aid me. There is one who can face the failed Alpha, one who is hidden from time itself. In a house, far from this place, lives the line of those chosen. Seek the family, called Graham. In their cellar lies one set apart. Bring him to me." Eldridge's lips curled in defiance. "I will go nowhere near an Alpha, nowhere near your champion. Tear me apart instead. Perhaps I would welcome it." The voice shook the mountains, yet carried no wrath, only command. "I will bind Vaelak as I did before, for but a moment, yet his prison is broken and time is short. Aid me to set right what was undone, or face him alone." Jonas spat, lifted his chin at Eldridge. "Do it." The vampire's sunken eyes studied his friend, and for the first time in centuries, something like humanity flickered there. "Where is this damn place? I have not walked those shadows." Jonas's mouth twisted in a bloody grin. "Then you'll just have to trust your god." Eldridge sighed, shook his head, then drew the shadows around him like a cloak. They swallowed his form, spiraling into a black vortex. His voice echoed once more as the last of him slipped away. "Very well, even again." The portal snapped shut. The world trembled, and Vaelak's roar began to move once more. Chapter 6. The Alpha Prime. The world bent to shadow. Eldridge slipped between folds of darkness, drawn by a thought. not his own. Lycan had planted it within him, a destination, an unyielding truth. The Graham family, a name carried like a curse across time. The shadows peeled back, and Eldridge stepped from the void. Boots sinking into dry leaves. Before him stood an isolated farmhouse, its timbers old but standing proud against the wind. The plains stretched empty all around, yet from within the house, low voices whispered in ancient tongues, chanting. The vampire froze, his sunken eyes narrowing. The air itself vibrated with a primal force. He looked up, as if searching for an answer from a god he did not serve. "Please," he muttered, voice dry as ash. "Don't kill me." He dissolved into shadow once more, reappearing within the cellar. It was cold, damp, and reeked of iron and dust. Yet in the corner, crouched within the darkness, was a form too vast to be hidden, a beast on two legs, towering even in stillness. Its eyes glowed with burning restraint, golden fire trapped in a cage. Dimitri, the Alpha Prime, his gaze fixed on Eldridge, unblinking. He did not move, but power radiated from him like heat from a furnace. Lycan's binding chains, invisible but absolute, held him in silence. Eldridge's throat tightened. His hands trembled despite centuries of control. "This is not my day." Step by step, he drew nearer, each pace slower than the last. He extended one hand, pale and shaking, toward the unmoving giant. To carry him through shadow, he needed to touch him, his palm pressed against fur that felt like stone. For a breathless moment, Eldridge thought the beast would strike, but Dimitri did not move. The binding held, and then the shadows roared open. Back on the plains, Vaelak stirred. His roar returned, shaking the heavens. He took a step toward Jonas, then another, then stopped. Slowly, as if an unseen command had seized him, he sank to one knee, his red eyes blazing not with rage but reverence. The ground cracked as a shadow portal spiraled open, vast and thunderous. The dust of the plains whipped into a storm as something massive began to emerge. First a claw, black and immense, then a leg, heavy enough to shake the earth. And then, stepping fully into the moonlight, Dimitri, the Alpha Prime. His fur gleamed with an ancient sheen, his body a perfect storm of wolf and man, eyes burning gold like the dawn of creation. He did not snarl, he did not roar, he simply arrived. Jonas Creed lowered his gun, eyes wide. Eldridge staggered from the portal, pale as death. And the plains knew the final reckoning had come. End Part 5. Part 6. The final conflict. Coming soon.
If we don't stop them, it's the end of the world!
6. Chapter 1. The shadow portal shimmered like living smoke, and through it came Dimitri. His fur was black as the void, rippling like shadow made flesh, and his golden eyes burned like suns against the desolate plain. He was colossal, every step deliberate, every movement carrying a quiet authority that made the very earth shudder. Jonas Creed, leaning against his Dodge Charger, could only stare. He had fought Lycans, Packs, Guardians, even the failed Alpha himself, but he had never seen anything like this. His cigar fell from his lips unnoticed. This, he thought, is what a true Alpha looks like. Eldridge emerged from the darkness beside him, pale and ragged. Surprised, he still drew breath. He had brushed shoulders with gods and monsters in his long life, but even he took a step back. The shadows around his fingers faltered, uncertain. Across the plain stood Vaelak, the failed Alpha, his red eyes burning with hatred. He loomed like a storm, barely held in check. Something gnawed at him, something that bent his will against his own pride. Dimitri's presence pressed down like a weight of eternity, the inevitable dominance of an Alpha Prime. Vaelak's body trembled, his claws curled into the dirt, his head lowered, almost bowing, almost surrendering to that power. But inside Vaelak, another war raged. Rage sharpened by centuries of imprisonment, the lust to be more, to be the Alpha above all. Lysanor's voice echoed in his memory, a god who had cast him down. To bow was death. To bow was to admit Lysanor was right. The failed Alpha howled, the sound tearing across the plains like thunder. His body shook as he fought not Dimitri's claws, but his own nature. The primal law of wolves demanded reverence before such a presence. Yet his ambition screamed rebellion. His hatred screamed defiance. Jonas lit another cigar with a shaking hand. "Looks like the mutt can't decide," he muttered. Eldridge's hollow eyes never left the two titans. "It is not his decision. It is nature against pride. And pride," he whispered, "can be more dangerous than claws." The plains grew silent, all breath held, as Vaelak's howl twisted into a roar, the roar of a beast refusing to kneel before God or Alpha. Chapter 2. The plains themselves seemed to tremble as Vaelak stood locked in his silent war. The weight of Dimitri's presence pressed against him like a mountain, crushing his spine, and yet his crimson eyes blazed brighter, not dimmer. For centuries, the Lycans had whispered of the failed Alpha. They whispered because speaking his name too loudly was said to stir his memory. He was the one even Lysanor would not destroy. Rage made flesh, hatred made hunger. His power had once shaken the tribes of wolves and men alike. Long ago, guardians had been chosen to stand eternal watch, each touched with primal gifts: speed, strength, cunning, endurance, sight, hearing. Together, they were meant to be unbreakable, and yet Vaelak had destroyed them all once, one by one, without falter. Their claws broke on him, their teeth could not pierce him, their howls were drowned beneath his roar. In those days, the Lycans themselves bowed in terror, not respect, for he was not leader nor Alpha. He was wrath without purpose, and even wrath demands recognition. The earth had never known how close it came to ruin. Even Lysanor, god of Lycans, would not end him. To kill Vaelak would be to unleash chaos itself, for his spirit could not be chained by death. So instead, Lysanor buried him deep beneath the mountain, entombed and bound by guardians, each given a fragment of primal essence to hold the seal tight. And still, even in chains, Vaelak's legend grew, for wolves are bound by nature, and nature remembers. They whispered of him, not with honor, but with fear. The day he walked free again, all Lycans would bow, not out of loyalty, but out of survival. Now that day had come, and for the first time in centuries, Vaelak was tested not by chains, not by guardians, but by something greater. The Alpha Prime, Dimitri. For a heartbeat, the failed Alpha quivered, his body bent, head nearly touching the dirt, his instincts urging him to submit, to kneel as all others had, to obey the law of the true Alpha. But Vaelak was not born of law. He was born of defiance. His claws dug deep trenches into the soil as his head lifted once more, eyes burning like a forge. His chest heaved, and the howl that ripped from his throat split the sky, not in fear, but in pure rebellion. The battle within him was won. He would not bow. He would fight. And then he charged. The ground shook beneath his stride, each step like thunder, his monstrous frame surging with ancient power. Dust spiraled behind him, a hurricane of hatred aimed at a single target. And yet Dimitri, the Alpha Prime, the shadow-forged king, barely moved. He simply shifted his golden eyes to meet the oncoming storm. Regal, unyielding, eternal. The collision had not yet come, but the world already knew. When it did, mountains would fall, and the plains would remember this night forever. Chapter 3. Jonas Creed spat dust from his mouth and leaned against the fender of his black Charger, shotgun across his lap. His arm throbbed, ribs cracked, but his eyes stayed locked on the plain ahead. He nodded toward the battlefield where the dust still hung heavy. If the kid, that warrior Lycan, and Vaelak fought damn near a whole day and neither could put the other down. Jonas let out a dry laugh. This thin Dimitri and that monster, they could go on for weeks, maybe months. Beside him, Eldridge, pale and skeletal beneath his shadowed coat, slowly shook his head. No, he rasped, his sunken eyes never leaving the two titans. Not this time. There is something different about this one. The air split with a roar as Vaelak charged, tearing across the plains like a storm given form. His massive claw swung, enough to rip a house from its foundations, a strike that had ended guardians and shattered chains. Dust and stone burst into the air as his power came crashing forward, and yet Dimitri barely moved. The Alpha Prime simply extended one massive, shadow-black arm. His golden eyes burned like suns as his clawed hand shot out and closed around Vaelak's skull. The earth seemed to pause. Vaelak's strike froze mid-swing. His monstrous body halted in an instant. His claws raked the air uselessly, his entire frame trembling against Dimitri's grip. The failed Alpha, who had crushed guardians, who had made Lycans kneel for centuries, now hung helpless, caught like an insect in the web of something immeasurable. Vaelak howled, his rage splitting the night sky, claws thrashing wildly, but Dimitri's grip did not waver. His arm never trembled. His power was effortless, absolute. And then, with one casual swipe of his free claw, like a man brushing dust from his sleeve, Dimitri struck. The blow ripped through the plains like thunder. Vaelak, centuries of rage, hatred, and defiance, collapsed to the dirt, the light in his crimson eyes guttering out. The failed Alpha was finished. Jonas clenched his fist, pumping it into the air. Yeah, he roared. That's what I'm talking about. But Eldridge did not move. His hollow voice cut through Jonas's cheer like ice. Don't celebrate just yet. This victory is not what we were hoping for. Jonas blinked at him. What the hell are you talking about? He just flattened the ugliest son of a bitch I've ever seen. Eldridge's gaze never wavered. His voice lowered, almost reverent. Look. Jonas turned his eyes back to the battlefield. Dimitri stood over Vaelak's corpse, but he did not retreat. He did not fade back into the shadows. His golden eyes burned hotter, his chest heaving as though awakening to a new hunger. The portal still shimmered behind him, yet he made no move to return. Instead, Dimitri raised his head to the moon and growled, not the sound of a protector, but of a sovereign who had just claimed dominion. Chapter 4. The plain fell silent. Dust drifted where Vaelak's body had fallen, the failed Alpha, nothing more than a memory now. For a long breath, all that could be heard was the hiss of the wind across the grass. Then Dimitri turned, his golden eyes fixed on Jonas and Eldridge. They burned hotter than fire, cutting through the night, assessing, judging, his head tilted slightly, not in curiosity, but in calculation. Predator. Jonas shifted uncomfortably, his shotgun heavy in his hands. Eldridge's shadows stirred nervously around his feet. For a heartbeat, it felt as though the Alpha Prime was deciding whether to end them both right there. But then, with a sudden roar, Dimitri spun, not toward the portal, not toward Lysanor's command, but away. His massive frame thundered across the plains, black fur rippling like smoke, claws tearing deep trenches into the earth. He did not look back. Jonas cursed, spitting out his cigar. Where the hell's he going? Eldridge's voice was thin, laced with dread. Anywhere he chooses. The portal behind them still shimmered, but Dimitri did not return. He fled farther, faster, each stride pulling him toward the horizon, toward villages, toward towns, toward mankind. Jonas took a step forward, his gut clenching. There was something different in that run. It wasn't escape. It wasn't retreat. It was purpose. The kind of purpose that promised a world drenched in fur and blood. Above them, the sky split with a voice that rolled like thunder. "Stop him!" Both men froze as the voice of Lysana pressed into their very bones. He must never reach the town. If he does, the curse begins now. 40 years too soon. The world will drown before its time. Jonas looked at Eldridge, his jaw tightening. "You heard the god, old man. Saddle up. We got a monster to catch." Eldridge's sunken eyes narrowed, his shadows curling once again at his hands. "Not a monster. Jonas. A god's mistake." Dimitri's roar echoed across the plains as he vanished into the night, carrying the threat of a curse that could end the world before its time. The chase had begun. Chapter 5. The wind stilled. Jonas and Eldridge stood frozen on the open plains, Dimitri's roars echoing in the distance. Then the world around them shifted. The dust, the grass, even the stars overhead seemed to blur. Jonas grabbed the butt of his shotgun, eyes narrowing. What now? Eldridge's sunken gaze flickered uneasily. This is not me. The air split with a voice that rolled like thunder, Lysanor's voice. "Look, Hunter. Look, Elder. This is what awaits should he reach the town tonight. Crimson before its time." The plains dissolved. They stood before the Graham farmhouse, whole and alive under a stormy sky. Rain lashed the roof as lightning flashed across the horizon. A lone traveller, weary and soaked, stumbled up to the porch. He knocked on the door. Inside, faint shadows moved, voices whispered, but the door never opened. The Graham family knew their oath. To guard, to keep strangers away, to protect the cellar at any cost. The traveller, muttering, turned away, rejected. He trudged into the tall grass until he came upon a crooked shed, leaning in the storm. Pushing inside, he found only rot and shadows. Then he heard it, faint, broken, like a dog's whimper from below. His lantern revealed a barred cellar window. Below it, in the black, two golden eyes stared back. "Easy there, boy," the traveller whispered, kneeling. He pushed his hand through the bars. A claw lashed out, lightning cracked, thunder shook the sky, and the man screamed, clutching his arm as blood mixed with rain. He stumbled into the night, and with him ran the first ember of a curse that would consume the world. The vision snapped shut, like a door slammed in their faces. Jonas gasped, staggered, and lit a cigar with trembling fingers. What the hell was that? Eldridge's voice was thin, unsettled. I do not know, but whatever it was, it smelled of truth. and it smelled of death. Above them, Lysanor's voice rolled again. This is Crimson Dawn. It was meant to come in its time, but if Dimitri spreads the curse now, 40 years too soon, there will be no balance, only the end. Jonas exhaled smoke, jaw tightening. Then we'd better stop him before he scratches anyone, or this whole damn world goes to hell early. The horizon burned faintly with the glow of Dimitri's eyes as his shadow thundered toward the town. Chapter 6. The black Dodge Charger roared across the plains, its engine screaming like thunder. Dust rose behind it in a long, furious trail. Jonas Creed gritted his teeth, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping his shotgun across the seat. His eyes locked forward, trying to track the colossal shadow of Dimitri in the distance, a living storm tearing towards the town. A ripple of darkness surged past the car, flickering through the dust like a living shadow. Eldridge, pale and ragged, stepping in and out of the night itself to keep pace. His gaunt face appeared beside the passenger window, moonlight painting his hollow eyes. Jonas shouted over the engine's roar, "Why the hell doesn't this Lysanor just come down and put his dog back in its cage? Why doesn't he deal with him?" Eldridge's voice was a rasp, carried on the wind. "Gods don't cage their mistakes. They balance them." Jonas slammed the wheel, spitting smoke from his cigar. "Balance? That thing isn't balance. That's the end of the damn world." He leaned out the window, yelling across the night. "Can't you just grab him? Teleport him back to where he was?" Eldridge's hollow face twisted. "If that thing touches me, Hunter, I am dust. I have no power over Lycans. An Alpha Prime would unmake me in a breath." Jonas growled and floored the accelerator. The Charger rattling. "Well, what the hell are we supposed to do once we catch up? I can't stop it. You can't stop it. What does this dog god expect us to do?" He pounded the steering wheel, furious. "Eldridge, can't you just open a portal in front of him? Let him run straight back into it." Eldridge flickered ahead in the shadows, his tattered coat whipping in the wind, then reappeared at Jonas's side. "No, his power tears through mine. A wolf of that rank walks through shadow as though it were mist. He would break my portals before they ever closed." Jonas cursed, the engine howling louder, and then Eldridge screamed into the night sky, his thin voice breaking into a snarl. "Lysanor, you want this beast put back in its cage? Then help us. You're the one who birthed him, the one who chained him, the one who let him loose. You talk of balance. The balance is already broken." His shadow snapped violently around him, his pale face lit with anger. "Make amends, God. If you won't cage him, then freeze him, just as you did before. All we need is seconds." The Charger tore across the plains, headlights burning through dust and shadow, racing a monster toward the town. Above, the storm clouds trembled, and the faintest roll of thunder answered.
If we don't stop him, it's the end of the world! Ah!
Chapter 7. Eldridge moved like smoke across the plains, a blur of shadow slipping through moonlight. Jonas's Charger roared far behind, but no engine could match the speed of darkness itself. Eldridge's hollow face twisted with strain as he drew level with the colossal figure thundering ahead. Dimitri, the Alpha Prime, the living curse. The ground shook beneath his every stride, golden eyes fixed on the distant town. Every step was inevitability itself. Eldridge raised his face to the storming heavens and screamed, his voice cracking into rage. "Lysanor, if you're going to do it now." For the briefest heartbeat, the impossible happened. Dimitri faltered. His stride slowed, not stopped, but weakened, as though some great hand pressed against his shoulders. It was enough. Eldridge knew this could be his end. If the Alpha Prime even brushed him, he would be unmade. But he had no choice. He slipped inside the slowing shadow of the beast, reached out with one skeletal hand, and touched the fur that was like living night. The world collapsed. Darkness, smoke, screaming fury, then a cellar. Dimitri stood once more in the Graham family's crypt, the bars and chains reknit by divine force. His golden eyes blazed with fury, his roar shaking the walls. He fixed his gaze on Eldridge, hatred burning eternal. But Eldridge was gone. He burst from shadow and reappeared beside Jonas, collapsing against the charger, his chest heaving. Jonas caught him, steadying him with one rough hand. "You old bastard," Jonas muttered, lighting a cigar with shaking fingers. "You actually did it." Eldridge's sunken eyes met his. Not me. Him. If Lycanor hadn't slowed him. His voice trailed, hollow with the weight of what almost was. Then Crimson Dawn. He stopped. The words withered on his tongue. Confusion clouded his face. He blinked, as though something vital had been pulled from his mind. Jonas frowned. "What the hell are you mumbling about?" Eldridge shook his head slowly. "Nothing. Vaelak, the Failed Alpha. He's dead. The warrior Lycan gave his life to finish it." Jonas exhaled smoke into the night, a grim smile cracking his scarred face. "Then we've done it. The kid's name deserves to be remembered." Eldridge nodded, shadows curling faintly at his feet. "And yours, Hunter. The name Jonas Creed will echo long after we're dust." They stood there in silence, unaware that their memories had been bound, rewritten. They remembered only the battle with Vaelak, the fall of the warrior Lycan, nothing more. Far away, in the dark cellar of the Graham home, Dimitri's golden eyes still burned, piercing the gloom like fire. He tugged at his chains, his roar muffled by stone. He had eternity to wait. 40 years. To a god's mistake, that was nothing. And when the crimson dawn rose, the world would remember his name. Epilogue. The years had not been kind. A storm groaned across the plains, dust rising like ghosts. In a lonely shack on the edge of nowhere, Jonas Creed sat in the dark. His hair was grey now, his body thin, the strength of his prime eaten away by time, and something darker still. He coughed, rough and hollow, spitting crimson into a rag. His hand trembled as he wiped his mouth, muttering between breaths. "Damn you, Eldridge. You and your damn rituals." He pushed himself to his feet, joints creaking, and shuffled outside. The wind hit him, dry and cold. There, beneath a tattered sheet, stood the outline of his past. The 1970 Dodge Charger. The car that had carried him through fire, fur, and legend. Dust covered it thick, the years burying the shine. Jonas laid his hand on the cloth, tracing the shape beneath. Another cough racked him. Harder this time, a spatter of blood against the dust. He spat into the dirt, eyes narrowing at the horizon. "You old bastard. You saved me from the curse. Only to leave me with this. Cancer." His voice cracked, half rage, half resignation. "Could have just let me die with teeth in my throat. Would have been cleaner." He staggered back inside. On the table lay a folded scrap of yellowed newsprint. He picked it up with shaking hands, eyes narrowing against the faded ink. The headline read, "Jonas Creed Legend, the Werewolf Hunter." His lips twitched into a thin smile, bitter but proud. He dropped into his chair, the paper resting across his lap. The coughs came again, deeper, but he laughed between them, a dry rasp, echoing in the shack. "Legend, huh? Guess that'll do." The wind howled outside, rattling the walls like the ghosts of every hunt. Jonas Creed leaned back, the paper slipping from his fingers, his gaze drifting to the ceiling as the night settled around him. The Werewolf Hunter was dying, but his name would never fade. The wind hissed through the shack, rattling the wood like bones. Jonas Creed sat slumped in his chair, the faded newspaper still resting across his lap. Jonas Creed Legend, the Werewolf Hunter. He coughed again, deeper this time, his hand stained crimson. His voice was a whisper, half to himself, half to the shadows. Damn you, Eldridge. You saved me from the curse, but left me rotting anyway. The storm outside quieted, leaving only silence, until... Headlights swept through the cracks in the wooden walls. A low engine idled. Tires crunched against the gravel outside. Jonas froze. No one came this far anymore. A knock rattled the door. Strong, deliberate. Jonas Creed? A man's voice. Rough, official. The sound of authority trying to mask unease. We need your help. Jonas's hand trembled over the shotgun that still leaned against the wall. His eyes closed, weary, as though the words themselves had dragged him back into the past he'd never escaped. The knock came again. Jonas, please. It's happening again. His jaw tightened. His frail frame seemed to sag beneath the weight of inevitability. The paper slipped from his lap to the floor, the headline catching the dim light one last time. The Werewolf Hunter. And then... If you want to follow Jonas Creed's full journey, do not miss the Complete Saga. Call of the Moon. Only available on Professor Shadow. Cut. Far away, in the cellar of the Graham house, the silence broke. The darkness stirred. Two golden eyes opened, burning like suns behind the bars. Dimitri's breath rumbled against the stone. His chains strained. He was waiting, because for one such as him, time was nothing. Witness the beginning of Crimson Dawn, as Dimitri, the Alpha Prime, is finally freed. See the Complete Saga of Crimson Dawn, only on Professor Shadow.
I know you will hate me for this.